clown show. Xbox as a brand has been in free fall for quite some time now. Microsoft is doing better than ever riding the AI boom and pumping tons of cash into Xbox as a company, allowing them to do insane things like outright purchase Bethesda and Activision. As a brand though, in terms of how people feel about Xbox, its reputation right now is in the gutter. Decades of poor business decisions and incompetent management ever since the disaster that was the Xbox One reveal has left the company a shadow of its former self. I've personally given Phil Spencer the benefit of the doubt for a while now. Riding the ship following Don Matrick's exit as head of Xbox bought him a lot of goodwill for the entire gaming community. Doing things like axing the Kinect and pivoting away from general multimedia back into pure gaming were easy wins. Releasing the Xbox One X at the same time was a clear gesture of good faith. A signal of enabling richer games was a huge course correction. It was hard not to have hope for his vision of the future of Xbox. Add in that he very much was a user of Xbox products, being an avid gamer himself, Spencer has always maintained the image of someone who gets what Xbox customers and video game enthusiasts in general want. But the last handful of years have done a lot to drain that confidence. We don't need to harp on too much about the specifics, everyone has talked about them to death already, including us here in this video, but from botching the handful of exclusives they'd gotten out the door, gobbling up studios and IP by the dozens only to sit on all their collected franchises, diluting the identity of Xbox as a platform when Nintendo and Sony have both doubled down into their respective niches, and everything they've allowed 343 to bastardize their most iconic franchise for an entire decade. Xbox was already in a poor position. But this last week in change saw a truly massive blunder that seems to have finally tipped the scales for even the average gamer. 2024 has already been a terrible year for the entirety of the tech industry. Thousands of utterly savage layoffs began as early as January and have continued throughout the entire year, all from companies simultaneously posting record profits, then investing those profits into scrambling to bring generative AI to market to do the work of all the people they just fired. Microsoft themselves contributed nearly 2,000 job losses themselves, axing positions from Activision Blizzard after swearing up and down job losses wouldn't be a side effect of buying them out. This week, they announced the closure of Tango Gameworks, Arcane Austin, and AlphaDog Studios. While AlphaDog may have flown under the radar for a lot of core Xbox fans, being a mobile game developer, though I've heard good things about Mighty Doom, Tango and Arcane hit a lot closer to home. While Redfall was a disaster, Arcane Austin was also responsible for the 2017 reboot of Prey, not to mention the awesome DLC for that game, Mooncrash, an absolutely fantastic experience that was criminally underlooked. While it didn't sell well in its initial release, the game built up a reputation in the following years, and Game Pass gave it another shot at success, cementing it as a cult classic. Tango was the developer of the Evil Within series, Ghostwire Tokyo, and most recently, the sleeper hit Hi-Fi Rush, which seemingly came out of nowhere and stealth launched to critical and commercial success. It's arguably Xbox's best release in years, with even Xbox themselves publicly stating on Twitter how happy they were with the game's performance and wanted to further invest in Tango. This statement wasn't even from a year ago, and here we are now, the studio dead, the team dissolved. A fucking crime. Pouring salt on the wound, the day after torching Tango, Xbox had an all-hands-on-deck town hall meeting where Matt Booty, yeah, that's his real name, specifically talked about needing more smaller-scoped games that garnered accolades and won awards, which was literally exactly what Tango delivered with Hi-Fi Rush. Tango was actually working on pitching a sequel to Hi-Fi Rush when they got the axe by Microsoft. Again, literally exactly what Matt was asking for. The short-sightedness, the pure boneheaded stupidity is off the charts. People blasted Xbox for this, myself included, and they have every right to. Tone Deaf doesn't even begin to describe the optics here. Tango's corpse wasn't even cold yet, and they were crying about not having exactly what that studio was best at doing. A staggering level of idiocy. Following the closure of these studios, the president of Xbox, Sarah Bond, did an interview with Bloomberg, in which she addressed the closures in the most frustrating way possible. When directly asked about the closure of Tango after releasing a hit like Hi-Fi Rush, and genuinely asking why success like that isn't rewarded, Sarah went on a 30-second word salad tangent of a response and said nothing. The only thought you could pull from her response was essentially, Hi-Fi Rush wasn't actually a success in our book, with all the references to different definitions of success for different studios. She also mentioned having a strong relationship with Bethesda and supporting that company, even though all the studios shuttered were part of Bethesda. When asked about Xbox's plan for mobile, Sarah talked about buying Activision was largely about their mobile portfolio and the strength of having teams that were first and foremost mobile-facing. Which must sting a bit for all the devs at AlphaDog, which was a strictly mobile-first studio. The entire interview is just an enraging 17 minutes of stupidity. Similarly, Arcane Austin was working on the long-delayed DLC for Redfall hours before the announcement of their closure went live. I can't speak definitively about the inner workings of a company campus I've never set foot in, but communication has always felt like a serious issue with Xbox Game Studios, and this seemingly only reinforces that feeling. You don't work on a project the same shift your studio is set to close its doors unless you weren't told the axe was coming. This really all circles back to the main point we made in our previous video on Xbox: Microsoft's complete erosion of the brand's identity. Xbox has become as bland and sterile as its parent company, a one-size-fits-all business model that resonates with no one who isn't attached to the brand due to blind nostalgia. Its users are content at best, aggravated at worst. Modern Xbox inspires no passion, no excitement, because they represent nothing. Anyone willing to look outside of Xbox at what Sony, Nintendo, or Steam are serving up most likely do so with pangs of jealousy and buyer's remorse at what's sitting under their TV right now. Nobody outside of the terminally online forum warriors uses Windows because they like it. They use it because it's what they have. Xbox seems on track to become the same thing, but unlike Windows, the competition in gaming is too strong for that position to last you in the market very long. This path they're taking is a death spiral. Xbox did this to themselves, of course. Phil Spencer is at fault. Sarah Bond is at fault. Matt Booty is at fault. Satya Nadella is at fault. Management has continually been absolutely incompetent running this company, and it's been going on for too long and too consistently to call it anything other than absolute failure of leadership. Satya is unfortunately too high up on the food chain to take any damage from this, but honestly, instead of punishing the boots on the ground developers and studios that are doing their best despite this executive incompetence, it's far past due for the higher-ups constantly making the same handful of mistakes over and over again to be held responsible for what in no unclear terms, their fault. These decisions come from them, and for too long now they've been allowed to make them, then pass the buck when heads have to roll for their failures. Spencer, Bond, and Booty all need to go. The sooner the better. We gave Phil a lot of credit for unfucking things during the Xbox One era, but any moron with half a clue of what gamers wanted could have deduced that TV wasn't it. The bar was really fucking low there. Clearly these guys don't have what it takes to unfuck Xbox a second time, despite being given over $75 billion worth of assets to make it happen. Bring in someone who can. If you can't, then perhaps it's time to sunset this brand entirely. I don't want that to happen. I don't want more fucking consolidation in platforms, but it seems like the people in charge are only interested in the Activision Blizzard piece of this pie now anyways, ignoring everything else in their stable as they've been chasing this purchase for years. Everything that studio makes is multi-platform. You can't use that IP to bolster Xbox without pissing off 2/3 of the $70 billion worth of customers you just acquired. What's the point of even bothering with hardware at all if this single purchase is going to make more money than all of that anyways? If Xbox still had some actual brand identity, maybe they could do something. But you've spent the last decade making Xbox a scattershot platform. Its defining feature a digital buffet. Blind, empty, endless consumption. It's the Costco of consoles. Value at the expense of anything truly meaningful or emotionally resonant. That won't inspire any loyalty from the next generation of gamers, who you've already conditioned to expect cross-platform and crossplay anyways, and your established loyalists are quickly losing faith. I ask again like I did last year. What even is an Xbox game in 2024? I guess now it's an Activision game, which everyone hates, so good job, I guess. I'd say at this point vote with your wallets if you don't agree with these kinds of decisions, but it seems like people already have. Xbox is still in a distant third place this console cycle, and with bad PR like this, I don't see it improving anytime soon. Game Pass numbers have flatlined, and I personally canceled my subscription a few weeks ago due to not using it, though I would have canceled it anyway at this point just on principle. I don't know what Microsoft is going to be able to do to turn this around. This can't be solved with a newer, more powerful box like they did with the Xbox One. An Xbox Series Pro, or whatever the hell you'd call a mid-gen refresh at this point, will just be a more powerful wasteland of potential. There's nothing to play on Xbox. There's no defining identity to give potential buyers insights into what they could gain and what the purchase would communicate about themselves to look forward to. This needs an entirely new approach to the brand, which needs an entirely new set of executives with new, better thinking. Or we just let it go. Xbox becomes another Sega and bows out of hardware entirely and rides the COD dollars into an endless series of profitable quarters. Honestly, at this point, I don't even really care.